Hola, mi amo es Jen de JenThereDoneThat. ¿Tú hablas español? Hi, I'm Jen from JenThereDoneThat, and many of you have asked me, do I speak Spanish? Many of you have also asked me, do I need to speak Spanish, either living in Puerto Rico or just visiting the island? So we're going to talk about that in this video. So to start off, do I speak Spanish? That's a complicated question. I thought I spoke Spanish. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, which is pretty Spanish speaking. It's a border town. And I actually went to a bilingual elementary school. So I definitely thought I spoke Spanish. I go to Mexico on vacation and I understand most of the conversations around me. I'm very comfortable speaking and being in that environment. Moving to Puerto Rico, I found out that Puerto Ricans speak a completely different dialect than Mexico. So in Puerto Rico, they speak very fast, muy rápido. And they drop their S's, they combine words, and they use completely different slang. So phrases and terminology that I could comfortably use in Mexico do not translate here. In fact, most of them get lost in translation and they just look at me, not just because I have a weird accent and I speak too slow and I pronounce things funny, but I'm definitely using words that are not normal slang here. A good example of that is I was at one of my local bars and trying to order a drink, something that I probably was still mispronouncing in Mexico, but it was close enough that they would understand what I was asking. Here, I order the drink and my bartender looks at me and says, what do you want to drink? And I repeated it again, and by this point she's giggling and laughing at me, and I just said, I don't get it. And she said, well, you ordered a sex act, and I'm pretty sure you want a drink. And I did, I wanted a drink. So we all had a good chuckle. I definitely butchered the pronunciation, and I did end up getting the drink that I ordered. It's usually pretty lighthearted like that. My Spanish is definitely not good enough where I could work in a professional environment speaking Spanish. I brought my job with me, and all of my clients are English speaking, so I don't have to worry about that in my job. But coming to Puerto Rico as a non-Spanish speaker, fluent Spanish speaker, would be very difficult to get a job and be employed. Otherwise, I'm very good at ordering food, so being out and about, whether I'm a tourist or a resident, I can go to San Juan. Most everybody speaks English there anyway, and they're very forgiving of my accent, as long as you try. But I'm very good at ordering food. I can get around with basic conversation. Hi, how are you? Hola, ¿cómo está? And some of you may have seen my video when I talk about buying a car. What I did not tell you is that when I bought my Jeep, I did almost the entire transaction in Espanol. When the salesman learned that I've lived in Puerto Rico over 3 years, he asked me how well I speak Spanish. And I said, un poco, I need to practice. And he said, this is the perfect time for you to practice. So I bought my Jeep entirely in Espanol, with the exception of I double-checked the numbers in English and in writing, because I don't trust my Spanish that much. But I was pretty proud of being able to purchase my Jeep entirely in Espanol. And then when I went to sell my car, I did that entirely in Espanol. Going to DTOP, the Department of Transportation, I had context. I knew that I was the seller. I knew who the buyer was. I knew we were talking about my car and selling it and transferring the title. So I was able to do that entire transaction in Espanol as well. A few times I had to ask them to repeat and slow down a little bit. Es no fácil, but they were very understanding and I think appreciated the fact that I was trying so hard to do the entire transaction in Espanol, despite the buyer speaking fairly good English. So I definitely had a backup just in case my Spanish completely fails me. I am very comfortable scuba diving and speaking Spanish for my dive briefings. In fact, all of my scuba instructors have been Spanish speaking. I was certified in Mexico. So now when I do a scuba dive and there's more Spanish speakers than English speakers, or I'm the only English speaker, then I'm perfectly comfortable doing a dive briefing in Espanol. I know how far we're going out, what they're talking about, the depths, what we're gonna see, and then really once you get down under the water, it's all hand signals anyway. So my Spanish can definitely get me around the island. I certainly have room for improvement. My vocabulary is very limited, and I have a funny accent. I know, but I do speak some limited Spanish. I hear a lot of Spanish and understand, but in Puerto Rico, it's never that simple yes, no. There are a lot of different dialects even within the island of Puerto Rico. So some of the mountain regions are much more difficult dialect for me to hear. They speak faster and have even more of a slang. I do really well with people from San Juan that are used to a lot of English speakers. They slow down and they usually will overpronunciate things, so I'm not missing some of the consonants as we go. But I definitely think that my Spanish has come along quite a bit in the last few years, and it continues to improve every day. For tourists, I definitely recommend getting a small phrase book, ¿Dónde está el baño? So you know where the bathrooms are, and just familiarize yourself with food and transportation and some basics. Otherwise, in most of the tourist regions, they will speak English. They're very understanding, and if you do have business with someone who doesn't speak English, there's almost always someone around that can help out. I found that the Puerto Ricans that speak English are very proud that they speak English, and they're always happy to step in and kind of help translate and explain quite a bit. Last weekend, I was at a birthday party where there were only a few English speakers, and so for me to actually mingle and meet new people, I had to speak my very bad Spanish. And it was really good for me because as bad as my Spanish is, people were so welcoming and excited that I was trying, and I had wonderful conversations where we were talking about the cities and some of my favorite things around the island and where people had grown up here and their family, and I was really getting comfortable speaking, and every once in a while there'd still be a word that they wouldn't know what I was talking about and I didn't know what they were talking about. So I'm very good at charades as well. I can act out lots of different motions. And so even if you don't speak Spanish, make sure you practice your charades before coming to Puerto Rico. So thanks to all of you that asked me if I speak Spanish and if you need to speak Spanish as a tourist to come visit the island. I appreciate your comments and questions. If you have any other comments, please leave those below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos from Jen There, Done That.